This is Kathy Brooks of LUTG Radio's WKKP Digital Broadcasting, Chicago, Illinois, and we are running the live Periscope feed. Um, the Democrats are holding basically a filibuster. It's called No Bill, No Break. It's an attempt to get the Republicans to pass a bill so that if you cannot be on if you are on a no-fly list for airplanes, then you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. They don't want people to be able to go to a gun show to get a gun when they can't even get on an airplane. So this is in regards to the Orlando shooting, as well as the many other shootings that have occurred over the last few years. So I'll put it on now. This is LUTG Radio, WKKP Digital Broadcasting.
It's the necessary things. They expect us not to sit around. They expect us to save that next life and to certainly try. That is why I am so proud to be here as a Democrat with all of you. But this is not about Democrats and Republicans. This is about doing what's right for the American people.
Okay, we had a bit of a freeze. Okay, so we're having a little technical difficulties here. One moment. Okay, so again, we're having a little technical difficulty, but we're gonna try and get this back up for you. But until then, got a little bit of music coming up for you. And this is Isaiah J. 7 Tray of VS. The Lord reigns. Amen. Don't forget, go to lutgradio.com for 24/7 live radio broadcasts of Christian music. You can also get saved there as well under the tab Find a Church Salvation.
I've been waiting for this one. Check this out. Say this. The Lord God reigns forever. That's why we shall never give up. You see that? I ain't gonna never give up. Let me hear you say it if you ain't gonna give up. Let me hear you say it. Come on.
Gun owners say universal background checks. Now, my state has taken that step, first by initiative and then expanded in the Oregon legislature, but it doesn't look at people could just go across state lines to other states. And all we're asking for today is a first step. No fly, no buy. Good grief. Why can't we get that passed? Why can't we just bring that up for a vote, Mr. Speaker? Something that makes sense to people across this country. Don't be afraid to bring it up for a vote. I listened to my colleagues here today, Dr. Vera, Dr. Ruiz, the doctors who have treated patients with gunshot wounds, and how heart-wrenching that must be. We don't want that to happen. I listened to our colleague, Mr. Langevin, talk about the consequences of even gun accidents and living with that for the rest of his life. We have the votes, we have the passion across the country. Our constituents today are looking at us and saying, please take action. What do? No fly, no buy. Give us a vote, Mr. Speaker. I want to share with you what Gabby Giffords has just tweeted out. She said, grateful to the leaders on the House floor who are demanding a vote on gun violence prevention. Americans deserve a vote. Mr. Speaker, let's do this. Let's do this for Gabby. Let's do this for the families of the victims from the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. Let's do it for the victims of Aurora, for the victims of Columbine, for the victims of Umpqua Community College and Clackamas Town Center in Oregon. Let's do this not only for the families of the victims, but for the future, for our kids, for those 5-year-old kids who are in the bedroom afraid of a lockdown. Let's do this for our future. Mr. Speaker, no bill, no break. Enough is enough.
Yes, Suzanne, great job.
Little Jackson Lee. I'm also so proud to announce again that we've been joined by yet another senator, the great senator from the state of New Hampshire, Jean Shaheen.
Thank you, John Larson. Thank you for your voice and your strength. Thank you, John Lewis. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you to all of the members. My heart is fluttering. My soul is not tired. I am like Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, but I am not soulfully tired. The empty chair of the speaker does not intimidate me. The heart and hearts does not frighten me. I have the privilege of serving with each and every one of you. And the dean of this place, John Conyers, who provides over the Judiciary Committee with a heart that would be open to the passions and needs of America. Breaking news. If the laws had been in place that the Senate tried to pass in the horrific tragedy of Orlando, there would not be 49 dead. If the laws had been in place, no fly, no buy, expanded background checks, there would be those who are living. Breaking news. United States has many active shooters. Breaking news. United States has many mass shootings. So the question is, where is the morality of this place? The very morality that is asked over and over again by our friends on the other side of the aisle when they want to challenge us for our belief in going to say that this is something that many of us experienced when we sat down in places where there was no justice. And as someone recalled the Constitution, where there is the Sixth Amendment, a right to a trial by jury, where the Fifth Amendment, due process, the 14th Amendment that deals with equality. Tell me who will give justice to the victims who are dying every single day? Who will give justice to Connecticut? Who will give it to Aurora? Who will give it to those who died in Virginia Tech? Who will give it to the soldiers who died in Fort Hood, Texas? Do we have any morality in this place? And if there is any morality in this place, the doors will open up and they will denounce the fact that they are committed to being part not of the United States of America, but they are citizens of the United States of the NRA. And I am going to tear up my citizenship. I will not be a citizen of the United States of the NRA. But what I will do is to hold up this card and see whether the doors of this place will be opened and in will come those on the other side of the aisle pouring in, saying they will want to stand for morality and justice. They want to save lives. They want to cast an aye vote. I'm looking for the doors. I'm asking for them to be open. But if not, we will stay here and I will tear up the voting card until we can get a vote. It is now time for us to say, no fly, no buy, expanded background checks, and no bill, no break.
No bill, no break, no bill, no break, no bill, no bill, no break, no break, no bill, no break, no bill, no break. I'm very proud to say that we've been joined by the senior senator from the state of Connecticut, Dick Blumenthal, who along led that battle, conducted that filibuster last week in the United States Senate. Now I want to give you the order of people. I know there are a lot of people who want to speak, but we got a lot of time. And we're not going anywhere. And everybody's going to have the opportunity to speak. And so, but I want you, when Jose Serrano comes up, and it'll be shortly, I want you to give him a special Frank Sinatra welcome as well. Because the next set of people who will speak will start with Don Norcross, and then it'll be Chris Van Hollen, Diana DeGette, Bill Keating, and then Jim McDermott.
Thank you, John. Kira Murphy, 18 years old, the youngest victim of Orlando, just graduated West Catholic High School, right across the river from me. She had a full scholarship, went down to enjoy herself. And hearing the gunfire in the background. As a father, as a parent, the pain that her parents must have endured, unimaginable. For those who know me, I spent my life in labor. I just want to bring up what we can do when we set our minds to it. Used to have close to 14,000 people killed on the job every year before OSHA. So what did we do? We saw people dying unnecessarily. And as a Congress, as a country came together, passed laws, regulations, creating OSHA.
Okay, we're just trying to reconnect. You're listening to WKKP Digital
What did we
Broadcasting.
do? We saw people dying unnecessarily. And as a Congress, as a country came together, passed laws, regulations.
Okay, so again, there.
Our colleagues who are not here should understand, as Dr. King said, we made it all come here on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. Those bullets don't know whether you're Republican or a Democrat, you're from a red state or a blue state. I thought one of the proudest moments that I've had since joining this body just a short 2 years ago is when I saw our colleague John Lewis and President Barack Obama walk across that bridge in Selma. One of the most emotional times that I can remember. Remembering how far we had come as a country, but remembering how far we had to go. And how proud I was of that group of individuals sharing that moment. Yet, where are we? Anytime there is a horrific killing, there's lots of actions by our friends over here. They get very busy. They get busy trying to deny equality to the LGBT community. They get busy denying voter rights to minorities. They get busy denying health care to women. I think they have their priorities wrong. I think they need to deny terrorists the opportunity to buy guns. Amen. Let's deny guns to those terrorists and would-be terrorists and dangerous individuals by these common sense issues. Common sense. No fly, no buy, and we'll be here until we have a bill. So if we don't have a bill, yes, what happens? No break. Thank you.
So they're actually referring that Congress won't break for their normal vacation holiday type break.
Pleased to acknowledge another member of the House and Cleveland Indians fan who's joined us, Sherrod Brown from the great state of Ohio. Member of the House. I want to give a shout out to 4 of our members who are on Periscope.
Yeah.
And who have been streaming this. So Scott Peterson, Beto O'Rourke, Tom Byer, Scott Peters, excuse me, Eric Sawwell, and Mike Honda.
Yeah, Mike.
Thank you. And Scott Peters. And Scott Peters started this. And Scott, how many people have you been streaming on?
We got thousands. Got C-SPAN is
And Mark
broadcasting
Takano.
Periscope. C-SPAN is broadcasting Periscope live. It's on C-SPAN.
C-SPAN is broadcasting Periscope live.
That feed right
Thanks
there.
to these guys. So Scott, Beto, John, Eric, Mike, thank you so much. Our next speaker, Chris Van Hollen.
I am so proud to stand here and to sit here with our colleagues from the great House of Representatives.
Yeah, right.
But I am ashamed of the fact that this House of Representatives has remained silent and done nothing in the face of carnage around this country. After Aurora, what did this House do? Moment of silence. After Oak Creek, what did this House do?
Nothing.
Moment of silence. After Newtown, what did this House do? Moment of silence. After Charleston, moment of silence. After Orlando, moment of silence. And all the carnage in between and before, and the carnage that goes on daily in our neighborhoods and our streets, moment of silence. We have learned from history that silence in the face of injustice makes this House complicit in that injustice. It makes us complicit in the carnage that goes on. It makes us responsible for lives taken when we know there are actions we can take to save lives. We know these common sense measures will protect the lives of the American people. Will they save everybody? No. Will they reduce the heartache and the death toll? Yes, they will. Now, in the People's House, you'd expect the people's will to be done. These common sense gun measures
Okay, we had a little technical difficulties here. Hold on.
They know that if you're too dangerous to fly on an airplane,
Okay, so we got the. Oh, wait. Hold on a sec. I do apologize. Here we go.
All right, now, want to recognize a person who has inspired an entire nation, especially millennials across this nation who have rallied to his call of social injustice and social inequity. Ladies and gentlemen, from the United States Senate, the Senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. Bill Keating.
Come on down, Bill.
Diana DeGette.
Columbine is in my congressional district. And I remember that day in 1999, I was here in Congress. I was sitting in my office. Like all the rest of us, I was just stricken with horror at the images I saw on the screen. We're now so familiar with those images. I saw the police rushing in their riot gear. I saw the terrified children standing on the street corners. I saw the anxious parents waiting, crying to see about their children. I gotta say, it was one of the most horrifying moments of my entire life. That was in 1999. We had a moment of silence here on the floor, and many of us thought, finally, we're going to have the change in this country. Finally, we're going to have the laws that prevent people from taking assault weapons into a school and mowing down a whole bunch of students. Boy, were we wrong. Think about the hundreds of lives that have been taken just in mass shootings since 1999, and the thousands of lives that have been taken by gun violence on the streets of every single one of our cities. Think about those thousands of parents. Think about those terrified children. Think about what's happened. I fast forward to the Aurora Theater shooting, which is only a couple of miles from my house. I think about the shooting in Colorado Springs just a few months ago. People trying to go to a health clinic and get help. And I think to myself, all these shooters were different ages. These shooters had different motivations. These shooters had different thought processes. But all these shooters had one thing in common. These shooters had assault weapons with great big magazines on those guns, and they were able, in the Aurora case, to shoot 100 people in 2 minutes. The police in Aurora were there in 2 minutes, and yet close to 100 people were shot. So here we are. We should be banning these assault weapons, and we should be doing it now. We should be banning these massive magazines that can shoot out 30, 60 or more bullets in 2 minutes. We should be banning straw purchases. We should be doing all of that. But you know what? We can't even get the majority to say that if you're on the no-fly list, then you can't have a gun. We can't even get them to say that. We can't even get them to say, you know what? We should be able to have research at the Centers for Disease Control or the NIH on gun violence. We can't even get them to say that. We can't even get them to say you should have background checks in this country. I think this place has gone mad. What kind of an institution would completely ignore the goals and the thoughts of the American people? What kind of institution would ignore every mom in this country who wants to keep her child safe? What kind of an institution would do that? And what kind of an institution would shut down the microphones of the people who are trying to represent their constituents. I'm going to tell you, thank you to our colleagues who are streaming this right now, because we will not be silenced. We will not be silenced. This message is going out right now around America, and this leadership is going to pay. Thank you. This message is going out around the world, and people will see what we're doing here today, and they will.
It's just trying to reconnect. This is LUTG Radio, WKKP Digital Broadcasting. Okay, so we just got to find another live feed. Again, this is. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, do apologize. All right, so we're looking for another live feed for the Senate House. Oh, do apologize for that. All right, so we're just looking for another live feed here for the Democrats sit-in. Looks like one of the feeds was shut off, and they're trying to get the House to vote on the bill that would prevent anyone that is on the no-fly list from buying a gun commercially. And so they want you to text "no bill, no break" to 877-877. So while I look for a live feed, check out 7 Trey of VS. This dude loves the Lord. The Lord reigns.
I've been waiting for this one. Check this out. Say this. The Lord God reigns forever. That's why we shall never give up. See that? I ain't gonna never give up. Let me hear you say it if you ain't gonna give up. Let me hear you say it. Come on. The Lord God reigns forever. That's why you should never give up. What happened to the old school where parents were leaving inheritance for their kids to survive on? Huh? Now we out here and on our own, barely legal, but we grown, gotta find some way to get our thrive on. I inherited property growing up in the shy. Never thought you would make it to this day. Feel me say this is my escape, and I know that I'm never alone. Tapped in my inner man, a reason for writing this song. But you know what? There ain't no shortcuts when you walk in upright. Be careful of the handshake, cause the devil drags back to the angel of light. Kite, I'm flying higher than NASA, causing more turmoil than the tornadoes right out of Nebraska. Come and get me. If you not with me, you against me, you against me, you against me. That sent me. Trust me, you don't wanna offend me. The most highest God after my dreams, I will never give. Miracles happen when you walk by faith, I will forever live. Lord God reigns forever. That's why we shall never give up. Lord God reigns forever. That's why you should never give up. Lord God reigns forever. That's why we shall never give up. Lord God reigns forever. That's why you should never give up. Men alike, you walking in death, I'm walking in life. After the spirit of truth, after the spirit of Christ. It ain't easy, no, I'm not cheesing or breezing on by. Obedience and discipline is required for mine. Take time to pray and fast. You think I'm used to this life? Child support order 3 kids, you think I'm used to a wife? It is what it is, I don't shed no tears, I'm trillion. Cause my relationship with God is more than a feeling. He illin' from a city where killers and villains be chillin'. We're stealing and dealing, it's part of the everyday living. He was real and they tried to kill me for being the realest. On the block was a GDP, these was GD and killers. I was affiliated, roll with PDs and the Mo's. A shout to the D's and of course I should shout to the Stones. My Lord God reigns forever. That's why we shall never give up. Lord God reigns forever.
tomorrow we're going to just get up in this place. I'm telling you, you ruined a day for Paul Ryan. This was Paul Ryan's day to roll.
Okay, we're just trying to reconnect. Okay, looks like somebody's hand just blocked our feed. All right, so
Go, and we did this to him. You think there won't be payback? You don't know the Irish. Oh, the Irish Alzheimer's says you forget everything but the grudge. And believe me, you have created a grudge. So you've got to understand what you're getting into here by pushing this. And I believe that you are up to it. I for one moment this morning thought to myself, you know what? I wish I wasn't resigning. I wish I wasn't retiring. Our filing day is past, so you're safe. I'm going.
This is what democracy looks like.
But I will tell you one other thing. I remember a woman in this house. Her name was Carolyn McCarthy. Some of you may remember her. Somebody got on a Long Island train and mowed down the people in the car, including her son and her husband. And she came to the Republican Party and said, I want to run for Congress and do something about the guns. I'm going to go to Congress with you. And they said, we don't want any part of you, sister. So she came to the Democratic Party and she sat up there with the guys in Pennsylvania for many years. And she left here. When that automatic weapons issue came up, because when we got it through, the NRA said you got to put a 10-year sunset on it. So in 95 we put it in, 2005 it sunsetted. We couldn't get the votes. With a woman sitting in here whose husband and son had been killed by this kind of stuff. So you're not in a kid's game here. And this is really very important what's happening here today. And I'm proud, and I really believe no vote, no break. Now that means you got to go back to your office and schedule a plane on Saturday or Sunday to go home. All right? If you're serious about this. If you're not, you figure, this will all blow away by Friday. We'll get out at 3 o'clock. If you think that way, then you're not in for the fight to win. And I want you to go to your office and schedule another flight home. All right, Jim.
We're proud that we're joined by Brian Schatz from Hawaii. And we're also joined by the great senator from New Jersey, former leader in this house, Bob Menendez. Go Bill! 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 All
right, I'm so happy to be here and to join all of my colleagues. Let me just tell you how proud I am of you. Because the mic's not on, okay? But I know it's big enough. But let me just tell you how proud I am to stand with you today. And I've got to tell you that when I came to this Congress, I came here because the people sent me here from North Carolina, and we're not proud about a lot of things that are going on in North Carolina, but I did come here to represent the people who elected me. This is the people's house, and the people have a voice. And I've got to tell you that silence is just not enough. 1 minute of silence is just not enough. Now, Sunday, I sat in church, St. Luke's Missionary Baptist Church in Charlotte. And they had a moment of remembering the victims who were killed in Orlando and those who were killed in the church in South Carolina on last year, because it was about the same time. And so when those 49 faces came across the screen, it was a chilling moment because many of those folks were young, very young. As a matter of fact, in our state, Tevin Eugene Crosby, 25 years old. Shane Tomlinson, 33 years old. You know, these are just two of the latest victims from North Carolina who died in Orlando just a week or so ago. And you know, gun control is out of control. We've got to do something about this. And we've got to do something about it now. We can't just talk the talk, we've got to walk it too. Yeah. You know, when you're not safe, going to the movies, going to work, going to school, and even going to church and now at nightclubs. You know, our sense of safety and security is at risk in America. And so Tevin, Shane, and Tevin and Shane made a decision to go out and to spend some time with friends. Now, I'm sure that many of us have decided to do that at some time in our lives. We've gone out to have a good time. But that should not have cost them their lives. You know, America is in a troubling state of affairs. And this Congress needs to act. We need to be more than just concerned. You know, because there's a difference between being concerned and being committed. And the fact that my colleagues here in the Democratic Party have come together today, it tells me that you are truly committed and not just concerned. Because you know, when folks are concerned about an issue, and we all are, you usually just talk it to death. You don't do much about it. And usually your position is negotiable. But here we've come as committed citizens representing the people in the people's house. And so when you're truly committed, as we are here, being here today, that means that we're not just going to talk about the problem. We're going to do something about it, and our position is never negotiable. And so I'd say to the Speaker, you need to do your job. And I say to NRA, I get an F2. NRA, get the hell out of the way. Whoa! You know, we have a responsibility to the people who elected us. And I'm so very proud to stand here today and to be in the people's house. Now, I'm a fairly new member of this house. But I haven't seen a whole lot of action. We don't want to vote on immigration reform. And you know what? This is about the health and safety. You said that the Speaker wanted to roll out his health policy, but this is about the health and the well-being of American citizens. Right. And I'm going to continue to stand. Listen, I'm ready to bring my sleeping bag in here and stay all night. Good. It's really all about power and empowering our communities, to take back our communities, to make sure that wherever you go in America, that you can feel safe, that you don't have to be afraid about going to church and about going to school and about going out to have a good time if you want to do it. I like to have a good time too, but I want to feel good about going out and that I'm safe when I do it. But let me thank you again thank you all for being here, and thank you for standing up, because you've got to stand for something. If you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. Thank you so much.
All right, looks like I'm having trouble with my feed now. Okay, there we go. All right, so my feed is back. All right, so we're going to continue listening to the House, Senate. The Democrats are holding a sitting.
They did when they had to make a point. Now, there are people who think that we're going to leave this floor. There are people who think that they're going to come in and take it over, that, you know, this is just a matter of us going through the motions. That is not the case. And we're going to figure it out, because we understand what people have to do here in terms of their responsibilities. But this floor will always be occupied. And we will figure out as we go how to do that. We'll hear from John Lewis about that shortly. Jose Serrano.
I wish you could see yourselves I wish, and I don't want you to turn back away, because then you won't see me. I wish you could see America in front of us. And we're not only America today, we're also America in the fact that we represent the people, over 90% who want this bill to be voted on.
That's right.
So we are not in a vacuum. When I look at you, when I look at myself as part of you, I realize that we are representative of what this country is. The people who created this country did not have microphones, but their voice was heard throughout the world. They did not have TV cameras, but what they created is still seen and imitated today. They continued their fight without a microphone, without a blogger, without anything else. But I know one thing for sure. What is being said here today, what is being looked at today, what we are photographing today will be heard throughout the country and throughout the world for as long as people can remember. Because in my 42 years in public office, I've seen people come together, but I've never seen such an unplanned come together. Of course, when you have John Lewis around, it's easy to immediately get involved. I came from an appropriations bill, ready to manage another appropriations bill on the House floor. I should be on the 25th Amendment by now, but then I ran into John Lewis, so thank you for the break. Just tell me what the next step is. I haven't figured it out yet. Ladies and gentlemen, there's something I must do now which is important. There are people grieving in Orlando and throughout this country. But there's some people grieving in Orlando and in Puerto Rico because of the people who died in Orlando, who grieve in Spanish because they're not fluent in English. And to them I say, nosotros en el día de hoy estamos reunidos aquí en una protesta que dice que nosotros queremos un voto, y ese voto es para no permitir personas que estén enfermas mentales o que tengan problemas de que profesan el terrorismo o cualquier otro problema, cualquier otro crimen, que no se le permita comprar un arma de fuego, no viajar y no comprar armas de fuego. It's very simple. We don't want to forget them. We don't want to forget the people throughout the country. We are one nation, and nothing will stop us. Our voice will be heard, and you can turn off all these mics. They usually don't work anyway. But nothing will change us from what we are today. And when you get a chance, one at a time, turn around and look, because you're going to see a beautiful mosaic of people, the greatest that we have in our society, which is this side of the aisle and this side of the country. I thank you so much.
I always like to say when I was chairman of the caucus, this is America's caucus. Because when you look out at this caucus, and Jose is absolutely right, there's every nationality, ethnicity, and religious group represented in this great Democratic caucus. And we are going to persist on this floor to make sure that we get our message out, that we want a vote. Where is Joe Crowley? No. No bill. 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 I start baseball player. Let's give it up for Pete Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, Councilor Clark, colleagues, and to our friends in the gallery and watching this on TV. Thank you for being part of this democracy. Thank you for joining in our efforts. Thank you for allowing us the venue to have this discussion. But let's be very simple about what we're talking about here. Closing loopholes that allow suspected terrorists and criminals to purchase firearms.
Yeah.
Closing loopholes to prevent suspected terrorists and criminals from purchasing firearms. What part of that is offensive? What part of that
doesn't have the support of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle? Who disagrees that a background check shouldn't be universal for every purchase? What part is unreasonable? My community fell victim to gun violence, and many of you know I stood in this very spot with many of you behind me. I was one of those 30 moments of silence since Newtown that we've talked about. I stood with my colleagues and I asked for a moment of silence to honor those victims of the tragedy in San Bernardino, my hometown and where I'm from. Aurora, Newtown, Charleston, San Bernardino, Orlando. When will our House Republicans understand that this inaction is part of the problem? That our failure to lead and address this issue and have a vote on this issue is part of the problem. When will it be clear to them that this list shouldn't grow any larger? When will it be clear that we can and should do something? I haven't talked about this story, but a woman named Amanda was one of the individuals who was shot in San Bernardino. And she shared with me while she was in the hospital, she said, "Congressman, I don't know about all these issues. I just hope you guys can do something about it." She said she was from New Hampshire, and that the slogan for New Hampshire was "Live Free or Die." And she said that she understood an individual's right to bear arms, as all of us do. But she also understood that there can and should be common sense reform, and that something had to be done. This was while she was on a hospital bed, had multiple gunshots. One went through her hip and out of her kneecap with an assault rifle. She was a young woman who just encouraged me to come and talk to you and to share that story and to call us to action just like we are doing today. For those of us who feel compelled, for those of you who feel moved by this discussion, you heard the phone number and you've seen it. 202-224-3121 is the switchboard operator. Ask to talk to the Speaker's office and ask that we should have an opportunity to be heard. Our voices deserve to be heard on this issue. We deserve a vote on this issue. We deserve a vote on closing the loopholes that would prevent such tragedies. We deserve those votes. Amanda and the victims in San Bernardino deserve no less. We may be asked to yield at some time. Our voices will, however, be continued to be heard. We will not leave this place without an opportunity to be heard. But most importantly, these two bills, that's what we're here. That's what's important. No bill, no break. No bill, no break.
No bill, no break. No bill, no break. No bill, no break. No bill, no break. Another great member of the 106th Congress, someone who heads up our seniors task force, but someone who's been on the floor since 9:30 this morning, Jan Schakowsky.
So the 106th Congress started in 1999, and one of the first speeches that I made on the floor of the House was after the Columbine disaster. And I was naive enough to think that this really was going to be a tipping point, that finally, in 1999, that the Congress was going to act. And it didn't. And when Gabby Giffords, our own colleague, was shot and people were killed, including a 9-year-old girl, they thought, well, for sure this is it, because she was at a Congress on Your Corner She was doing what we all do. We go outside and we meet with our constituents. We can all relate to that on both sides of the aisle. But we didn't. And now, 15 years after Columbine, here we are. And the deaths keep mounting. This is Day J. I went to my granddaughter's graduation a couple weeks ago, and it was dedicated to Day J, who was shot on the streets of Evanston, Illinois. You've all heard about Chicago. I represent part of that. This was in my town of Evanston. Justin Michael Murray, killed on the streets of Evanston, Illinois. And then look at this. The beautiful, beautiful Nova and her daughter Ava. This was at her funeral, at their funeral. Both of them were murdered with a gun from her ex-boyfriend. So the killings go on. And I keep thinking we're finally going to get a tipping point. And guess what? I think we have today seen the tipping point. This is This is the tipping point. Over those 15 years, the world has changed. There was a time when issues like LGBT rights were a wedge issue for Democrats. When immigration was a wedge issue for Democrats. When gun violence was a wedge issue for Democrats. The Republicans have not figured out that the world has changed. That almost 90% of Americans are with us. Check with your office. Your constituents are calling. They are liking what they're seeing on Facebook. They are supporting what we do. Almost 90% of Americans, gun owners, NRA members, say that these simple bills that we want called today, they support them now. The world is different. I am so happy to be with you today, to be part of this movement that is changing America, joining with our constituents in saying, no bill, no break. No bill, no break.
Sean Patrick Maloney.
Everybody.
Hey, Sean.
So look at,
What's up? Okay.
Periscope, man. Go, Sean. All right, check it out. Here's what I want to say. I want to tell you about a couple of moments in this Congress that I will never forget. On June 26, 2015, I was walking to work. I live over by the Supreme Court, and I stopped in front of the court on the morning of the Obergefell decision. And there were thousands of people outside the Supreme Court. And interestingly, you couldn't find on that morning a single opponent of marriage equality. There was a sea of people who supported it. It was as if on the very moment when discrimination was vanishing from the jurisprudence of the court, the opposition had fled the field in front of the court. It was just people waiting, but they hadn't heard the news yet. And when those kids came running out with the decision, you could hear a pin drop, and everybody stopped breathing. And when the crack and the ripple went through the crowd and you knew we had won, there was a group of young kids in front of the court, and they started to sing the national anthem. And it made me cry then, and it's making me emotional now, because here's the deal. It still matters what we do in these buildings with marble columns and thick plush seats when we come in with security and armed men to do our business. There are people out there waiting. They're waiting to see if it still works. They want to know if we can still do it in this country. They're hoping and they're waiting for justice and for their voices to be heard. And when they get it, when it happens, they sing the national anthem. They celebrate their country. Look at these people in the gallery. Look at them. When's the last time you saw your Congress stand for something? When's the last time you felt good about what we do here?
write it down. We're going to make mistakes. But you know what? We care about what we're saying today. We mean it. It's not crafted or scripted by some consultant. It's not being packaged for you in some slick commercial. This is your country. We want you to care too. We need your help. There's just a few of us here, but there's millions of you out there. Come be a part of what's happening here. And the second day I want to tell you about is when I marched over the Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis in 2013 with my two little girls. And I thought about what it took for him as a young man to walk into billy clubs and tear gas and mounted police on horseback coming after them. He didn't lose a vote. He almost lost his life. He didn't get beat on the House floor. He got beat on the head with a club because he was trying to march towards justice. And there were people standing on the other side. Well, today there are people standing on the other side. Don't be those people. March with us towards justice. March with us towards is that the best day I've had in Congress is right now. Today, this is the best day I've had in Congress. And I want to tell you why. Look at these people sitting on the floor. When's the last time you sat on the floor? Feels pretty good, right?
In the 60s.
You feel like a little kid, maybe? Feel like a little kid again? When's the last time you heard people speak? When's the last time you felt and really, really cared about what went on the floor in this house? So I'd say we need more sitting on the floor in this house if it means people speak from their heart, if it means we're doing stuff we care about. I think we need to have the hearts of little kids again. We need to stand for something. We need to remember why we came here. And I think there's one thing that the American people cares more about than any individual bill, even the bills we're talking about today. They care that this place works for them. They care that there's still hope for our institutions. And when we give it to them, because we stand for something and we believe in ourselves, then they will sing their country's anthem again. And we can all be part of a Congress that we're proud of.
I thank all the members for their very kind and sincere suggestions. And we will certainly have entertainment as we go forward. But we have a lot of members who care as deeply as all of you have had the chance to speak. And I think America is tuned in as we turn it up here on the floor so that there's an opportunity, we hope, to convince our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that all they have to do is grant us a vote. That's all we're asking for is a vote. Now the next speaker is John Garamendi. Give it up for the man from California.
Mr. Speaker, who the hell are you? Come back to your chair, Mr. Speaker. Take your responsibility and give us a vote. Give us a vote today. Give us a vote on a little bit of safety for our people here in America. Mr. Speaker, your chair is empty. I don't believe your heart is empty. I believe you care about Americans. I believe you care deeply about the violence in our country. I was in my office at the California State Capitol in early January of 1989. I got a phone call from my staff in Stockton, California. Said, you won't believe it. You won't believe it. Again, on the school ground. Again. An AK-47 in the hands
Of a crazy? Not a crazy. Just somebody that had the machine to kill Vietnamese refugees, children that had escaped the violence of Vietnam, were on a school ground, and they were shot. I visited some of them in the hospital, and the holes in their bodies were as big as my fist. That horror movie has been repeated across America over and over and over and over again. Mr. Speaker, give us a vote. Give us the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to do our responsibility for the safety of Americans. How many times have you woken up in the morning to the newspaper about yet another drive-by shooting?
Every day.
It's not just Chicago. God help those. It's in my community. 750 people, 3 people murdered with guns in the last year. It's all across America. Mike Thompson, thank you for your work putting together the safe gun legislation. Mr. Speaker, take your chair. Give us a vote on the safe gun legislation. Universal background checks. What's wrong with that? Where did we go amiss? What is radical about that? Nothing. The American people want it. The American people want universal background checks. California has some of the most rational gun safety laws in the nation, and yet you can cross the border into Nevada and you can buy damn near anything. We need a universal background check for every state in this nation so that all of us can be protected. Are we ready for that, Mr. Speaker? Come back to your chair. Come back to your chair and lead us, Mr. Speaker, to the path of safety for us, for all of us, for all of our citizens. The insanity that we should have a no-fly list for terrorists and suspected terrorists. You can't get on an airplane, but more than 2,000 people on that list have been able to buy a gun.
You're listening to LUTG Radio's WKKP Digital Broadcasting, Chicago, Illinois.
Mr. Speaker, where are you? Where are you, Mr. Speaker? Are you willing to lead? Are you willing to keep Americans safe? Or are you hiding, Mr. Speaker, from the responsibility and duties that this House gave you? We want a vote. We demand a vote. And we'll be here until we get a vote, Mr. Speaker.
Again, we're pleased that we've been joined on this floor by one of our former members of the House and the great governor of the state of Washington, Jay Inslee. Joined by yet another of our United States senators. How about a special thanks, a special round of applause for the members of the Senate. Just about every single Democrat from the United States Senate has come to the floor of the House. Please give a warm welcome to Rhode Island's Sheldon Whitehouse. Eric Swallow.
Yeah. I think it's very fitting that we were led to this floor by somebody who has led a movement before and is passing what he has taken before on to people like Catherine and the rest of us. Good trouble, Mr. Lewis. Good trouble. Necessary trouble. I don't know why each and every one of you joined this movement this action by House Democrats? Maybe it was someone in the grocery store who said to you after Sandy Hook, or after San Bernardino, or after Orlando, when is Congress just going to do something about this? I heard it from Republicans. I heard it from Democrats. I heard it from people who never engage in the political system. They don't care who gets the credit. They just believe that the most dangerous people shouldn't have access to the most dangerous weapon. I'm proud to be here with each and every one of you. It's been frustrating the last 3 years, being in the minority, feeling like not much gets done. But today, that changes. Because our constituents are fed up. The victims' families are fed up. The moments of silence have been followed by moments of inaction. And in between each mass shooting, there's single tragedies in all of our communities. It may only be Democrats on the floor today, but somebody will be murdered this evening in a Republican's district by a firearm they should not have had. The last homicide case I tried as a prosecutor, it was a young man in his 20s who had an AK-47 fired at him about 40 times. He was only hit once, and he was hit in the back of the thigh. And his mom asked me, she said, how could he die? He was only hit once. It's the back of the thigh. We always think if you get hit in the leg, you're going to survive. And she had to listen to the pathologist in the courtroom and the ballistics experts say that those bullets from an assault weapon, they fly a lot faster. There's more energy. And it leaves those in their wake with little chance. And she knew that we would never bring her son Jermaine back. But all she expects, and all any victim's family expects, is that we do the most that we can to make sure it doesn't happen again. No one here on the floor thinks we're going to reduce every instance of gun violence. But damn it, isn't that why we came here? To try? Isn't that why we came here? We may not take evil out of every heart, but we are the place in the world, democracy, where we can reduce the amount of weapons that are in evil hands. I was 20 years old when September 11th happened. I was working for Congresswoman Ellen Tauscher. I was an intern here. And many of you stood on the House steps after that tragedy, Republicans and Democrats. I watched as you stood together. A whole generation of millennials found their call to service and how our country came together. And I still believe that although there are only Democrats on the floor right now, there are a lot of seats in this chamber, and there's a lot of room on this floor for our Republican colleagues to join us once again. Because the American people don't care who gets the credit.
No.
So I'm calling on my Republican colleagues. Come on down, and let's start with the basic idea that if you're too dangerous to get on a plane, you're too dangerous to buy a gun. And then we can work from there. The victims of gun violence will not get a break next week in their grieving. The people who are ravaging our communities with guns they should not have will not take a break next week to carry out more murder and more wrath. So if they are not going to take a break, we should not take a break. So, Mr. Speaker, if there is no bill, there should be no break.
No bill, no break. No break. No break. In this order, the next three speakers will be Corinne Brown, Karen Bass, and then Frank Pallone. Corinne, the floor is yours, the gentlelady from Florida.
God bless America. God bless America. And God has blessed America with each one of you in this room. Before I go on, give yourself a hand. I want to thank you. Thank you. And Senator, you coming up. I want you to know that I've been in the House of Representatives, Florida is in the House. I've been in the House of Representatives here since 1992. This is the first time that we had an incident, and they didn't ask the Florida delegation to come down front.
Yes.
Now we're down front. A picture. This is a picture that was in the paper Friday. The President of the United States and the Vice President. Senator Nelson was there. You're going to hold it. And let me just tell you that the President have had to do this too many times. Too many times. On the plane, he said, you know, it's very hard when you have to go and talk to families about this. I've had the honor for 24 years to represent the Orlando community. The issue happened in my district. And I got to tell you, when I woke up Sunday morning, I saw it. I got up and went straight to church. And then when I left church, I went to Orlando. And I know Orlando is a sophisticated international city, but it is also a family city.
Yes.
And the families came together. The community has come together. But you know, when I came back here to the Florida House of Representatives, I'm sorry, the U.S. House of Representatives, we had a 1 minute of silence. But you know what the Bible says, you know, pray, yes, but then the work must begin. We need more than silent moments of prayer. Yes. This incident occurred LGBT. It was the Pride Month. Now that means something. Hatred. But these are homegrown terrorists. And I don't understand why one person should have the opportunity to shoot over 200 bullets, over 49 people killed, and 53 in the hospital. Explain that to me. In 1994, I voted for the ban. I want more than just no fly, don't buy. I want to ban these guns. Those guns was created for the military. And if you're hunting, the only thing you're hunting with those guns are people. You're not hunting animals. And so I am asking, and you know, this happened in Orlando. And I'm so saddened. But the fact is, this is turning us around. We are turning around. This is the first time that we have come together and said, no more. No more. No more. No more. If we're going to work or we're not going home. Do you understand? No more. No more. And is it someone from the Florida delegation want to say something at this point? You also, with the point is, Frederica, all right, come on. Say something.
Well, this is just so wonderful to see all of you here and paying attention to this issue. When I stopped working, I was executive director for dropout prevention and alternative education for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So my job was to keep little children, especially little black boys, in school and keep them from dropping out. And I can say to you that I have buried so many little boys. I have a foundation set up just to pay for their funeral. And I am tired of burying little black boys. So I want you to know and understand that I represent Liberty City, Overtown, Carroll City, Opelika, Miami guns and somebody blood gets shot there every week. And my phone begins to ring. And I just kind of took it as this is life. And I have these boys that I've mentored and men mentored through the years for 25 years. And these are children who you can take and mold and put them on the right path, and they all go to college. So 22,000 of them have gone to college, but others have been murdered. Last year, 2 of them were on the basketball court at the school, playing with other guys. A young man their age, he was in the 11th grade, college back. A car came along and opened fire with an AK-47 at the children playing basketball in the heart of Liberty City. 2 of my boys, who I had poured my life into, who I had prepaid their scholarships before they were even born. They're 17, the program is 25 years old. LC is one of the charter members. One of them, they blew the top of his head. The surgeons have taken his skull and they put it in a freezer. He wears a helmet until his brain heals so that they can reattach his skull. I see him. I talk to him. I talk to his mother. And I really don't know most days what to say, because there's not too much I could do to stop this in this Congress. The other young man was shot in the neck. He is paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of his life. These are 17-year-old, college-bound, good boys who the community loves, and they all went to the same school. So I always knew that nobody really cared about my little boys because they have been getting shot for years. They're shot. Sometimes they don't even put it in the newspaper. But after they shot up Sandy Hook, and when I was talking to one of the FBI agents, and he said to me that they actually had to use a shovel to pick up some of the bodies because they were so little and the bullets were so big and they were so scattered. I just knew that would be the token, that would be the key for banning all assault weapons in this country. I never dreamed that we would be standing here today having this same conversation after those little babies were scraped off the ground with shovels. So I say to all of you who are sitting in this room, this is insanity. This is something, and everybody who shoots children are not terrorists. Everyone who shoots children are not crazy. So we have to go after the weapons that they use. We've got to make sure that whatever weapons that people need to hunt, let them have those weapons. But the weapons that people need to go to war with, they should not be in our urban districts. They should not be in our communities. They should not be in America. We need to ban those weapons. Get rid of those weapons. Marvin Kelly, all of you who have pulled us together and stood together on this floor. I thought I would never see the day that people really cared about little children being murdered in the urban centers of this country every single weekend. Thank you. No vote. No break. No vote. No break. No vote. No break. No vote. No break.
I'm very proud to be here with the Floridians and with every one of you, my colleagues. Thank you, Senator. And I thank all of the senators. Nearly 25 of them have come during the period of time that I've been here. I asked John just a moment ago something that happened that we never talked about. In the Sandy Hook shooting, the Gun Manufacturing Association's headquarters was a few miles away from that, and they quietly moved, and very few people are caught up with it. But now let me see if you have staying power, members. Jim McGovern and I and Louise Slaughter just left the Rules Committee. For the first time in the 23 years, going on 24 that I'm here, the new rule that we will vote on at some point allows that we will not be able to undertake procedural motions while we're in session. I've been here a long time, Max. I see you standing. Gene Taylor would have had to leave Congress if they had not had that provision. Now, let me tell you what else we did at the Rules Committee. While the rules was being discussed, what we brought forward was Congressperson Peter King's measure that was introduced at another point in time, and they would not make that rule in order. Please understand this. Now, you all talk about John, and John is a dear friend of mine. There are people in this room during the same time that John was crossing the Selma Bridge, along with Dr. King and countless others that he and I know. There were many of us in our respective communities that were conducting civil rights demonstrations all over. Cesar Chavez and countless other people were conducting demonstrations to bring to the attention of this country the failing circumstances that existed at that time with reference to the halcyon days of segregation. Now, I began my remarks this morning by asking you, and I ask you again, members, how many of you in the gallery, we aren't operating under any rules here. Normally we can't wave to you. Normally you can't speak out. How many of you in the gallery and members here have lost either friends or others or know of gun violence in your communities? Raise your hands. Enough already. We should not put ourselves in this continuing opposition. Now then, when we were demonstrating, we didn't just stay all night. A good friend of mine, Corinne, and I came here with his mother, Carrie Mead. Lois, you know Carrie. You served with her at another point in time as well. Senator, you knew her well, or know her well. But during that particular period of time, we clearly understood that a part of our mission had to do with what Frederica just talked about. And now, what we need to do here, I'm talking to every one of you, is to understand we may not be able to stay here until midnight. But what we did was we would demonstrate in front of the school building. We would demonstrate in front of the restaurants. John went across the bridge that day, but John went across many more bridges before we were able to do some things. I want to see if you can stay. If we're not finished today, will you come back tomorrow?
Yes.
Come back.
We're not leaving.
Thank you, Corinne. Well, again, thank all the members for the energy that you have brought to the floor today. You have done a great job, and we're joined by another former colleague from the House of Representatives, who's doing a great job as United States Senator from New Mexico, Martin Heinrich. Quorum in the House at one time, but we deeply appreciate our colleagues in the other body standing and supporting us over here for our efforts. I know that many of you last week walked over to the Senate chamber to encourage Chris Murphy and Dick Blumenthal, Cory Booker, and all of those, and Dick Durbin, and all of the United States senators that carried on that filibuster. We hope that the Speaker will give us a vote, just like Mitch McConnell let the Senate vote. It's not that much to ask of the Speaker of the House to simply give us an up or down vote. You control the majority. You have the opportunity to let America know where you stand. Let them know how deep your convictions are, as we ourselves want to let the public know how deep our convictions are. And we will not stop from getting our message across.
No break. No bill. No break. No bill. No break. No break.
Karen Bass.
Colleagues, years before I ever thought I would run for office, I spent most of my life as an activist and have been involved in many sit-ins and many protests. But never did I think I'd be coming to the House of Representatives and be involved in a protest and a sit-in. A protest and a sit-in to make this body do its job. I have to say that I am proud to stand with my colleagues, and I'm proud of the action that we're taking today. We're a legislative body that too often needs to be kicked to be forced into action, and especially an action that offends gun manufacturers. So let's be clear. We know why we're here today. It's not because of the Second Amendment. It's because our Republican colleagues are concerned about independent expenditure campaigns run against them that are financed by the NRA. That's what this is about. And sometimes it takes extraordinary measures and actions to get this body to work. I come from the city that introduced automatic weapons on the streets, where nightly shootings were so bad that it became commonplace for children to sleep in bathtubs in order to avoid gunfire at night. Where children today have been tested and have been found to suffer from traumatic stress syndrome, not post-traumatic stress syndrome, because it continues on. Post-traumatic stress syndrome happens when the trauma is over. The trauma continues on a daily basis because of the gunfire. There is so much that we need to do to cure this insanity in our nation. Our call to prevent people on the terrorist watch list from buying a gun is an important but a small step in the right direction. How is it that people on the watch list can't buy a plane ticket, but they can buy a gun? Our colleague Frederica Wilson is a perfect example of individual who has taken leadership in her community, who knows how to prevent the gun violence, because it's not just about stopping the guns. That's the first step. But it's about addressing the root causes that happen in our communities that lead to the violence. I listened to our colleague Bobby Rush earlier today talk about what it's like to receive that phone call. That call that tells you that your child has been killed. I listened to him talk about that deep cry, that deep wail of grief. I know that pain. I know about that call. I know what that punch in the stomach feels like. And I think about that every time I hear about these shootings, or every time I get an email from the Los Angeles Police Department informing me of another murder, which frankly happens daily. I'm so afraid that our nation will become numb and view daily shootings as normal. We can never allow our nation to accept this. That's why today is so important and why we must keep this up. Sometimes we have to remember that old slogan. Sometimes it takes by any means necessary to bring about change. We have to keep up our protests. We have to keep up our demand. No fly, no buy. No fly, no buy. No fly, no buy.
No bill, no raise. No bill, no raise. No bill, no raise. No bill, no raise. Frank Palone.
I've never been more proud of my colleagues here tonight. I've been here 28 years, and I've never seen it coming together like this with all of you showing your concern because of what the Republicans refuse to do. Now, you know, I couldn't say this if we were in session because they take my words down. But I'm mad as hell at those Republicans because you know what they are? They're cowards. They're cowards, that's what they are. They don't want to be on record. They don't want to be on record showing where they really stand on the bills that we want to bring up here. That's what's going on here today. And I want to tell you, we were in our committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee, last week, and I was asked by the chairman of the committee to have us not vote on a bill that would have lifted the ban. I don't know if you even realize this is another stupid thing that says that the CDC cannot do any research, cannot compile any data on guns and the impact of guns. And we were doing the mental health bill, and we were asked by the Republicans not to have a vote to lift that ban, because if we did, then that was going to make it so that we couldn't have the markup and a successful markup on the mental health bill. We actually did have a vote. What do you think the vote was? Every Democrat voted to lift that ban on that research and data collection. Every Republican voted the other way. They didn't want to have the vote because they didn't want to show where they stood. They don't want to show where they stand on assault weapons ban, on no fly, no buy, on universal background checks. That's what this is all about. But I'm telling you, my friends and my colleagues, when I go home, I was with Bonnie Watson Coleman. We had a press conference last week at the state capitol in Trenton. People still believe that we can make a difference. Don't think that our constituents have given up. They believe that we can make a difference. And so if we stay here today, tonight, tomorrow, whenever it is, and we demand a vote, those cowards, they'll allow the vote, and they'll have to stand up and show where they really are. I don't know, I've been walking in the back of the room. We've said there aren't any Republicans on the floor. There are Republicans on the floor. They're hovering in the back. They're hovering in the cloakroom. Come on out! Come on out here! Come on out! I don't want you to give up, because I'm telling you, if you stay here, we're going to succeed. We'll have that vote, and we'll show where we stand. I don't care. Let them come out and vote the bill down, but at least let us have a vote. We need to have a vote. Give us a vote.
Elliot Ingo.
Thank you. I've been very proud to be a member of this body for a number of years, but I've never been more proud than I am now. I want to thank all my colleagues who are here expressing solidarity. You want to hear a statistic? In the past decade, in gun violence, 428 times as many Americans have been killed in gun violence than in terrorism. Think about that. We take terrorist attacks killing Americans and times it by 428. And that's how many Americans have been killed by gun violence in the past decade. That is a shameful statistic. On the Foreign Affairs Committee, we often talk to people from other countries who represent other countries. They cannot understand why there are so many homicides in America. They cannot understand how easy it is for Americans to get these guns. They cannot understand, and frankly, my colleagues, neither can I. Neither can we. We cannot understand. You know, when we were in college, or maybe in grade school, we had a column, a chart, which talked about the House of Representatives and how a bill becomes a law. Take that chart and rip it up, because it doesn't happen that way. The majority of people want something, and it passes through a committee, and it gets to the floor, and the majority of people vote for it, it becomes a law. But we don't have that in the U.S. House of Representatives, because we don't have leadership in the majority that will allow us to debate these bills on the House floor. So it cannot become a law because we're not permitted to vote for it. That is not the democracy that our brave men and women died for in all the wars. Veterans Day, Memorial Day, we talk about the freedoms, but the freedoms are being shut down by the House majority because they won't even let us debate a bill on the floor. Now, years later, when people say to me, where were you? Where were you when there was gun violence and we tried to do something about it? I want to tell them that we were all here as proud members of the United States Congress demanding a vote. Not a vote for one political party or another, but a vote for the American people. A vote of common sense for the American people. Our colleagues have all talked about it. If you can't fly, how can you buy a gun? Someone said to me, well, you know what? This person who killed all these people in Florida could have killed people as well. But you know what? If he wasn't allowed to have a semi-automatic weapon, 49 people wouldn't have died. It would have been a heck of a lot less. These weapons are not weapons that the average person should have. And it's got nothing whatsoever to do with Second Amendment rights. And it's shameful that the National Rifle Association opposes any kind of change. You know, they rate all of us. They gave me an F rating. Yes. I hold that card with pride. An F rating from the NRA is an A+ rating from the American people. This is nothing more than common sense legislation. This is the people's house. Let the people express their desires through their elected representatives. We believe in democracy. Right. The people who control this house want to strangle democracy. What is wrong with giving us a vote? If we lose, we lose. If we win, we win. But to say that we cannot have a vote is no better than those totalitarian societies where people can't vote. It's no better than those societies where there is a parliament that's elected, but it's a rubber stamp parliament. We're better than that. We're Americans. We love our country. This is the greatest country in the world. Please don't sully it by refusing us a vote. We want a vote. No bill, no break. No bill, no break.
Thank you, Elliot. Just so that everybody can prepare to come to the mic in this order, we're going to next hear from Julia Brownlee, then Dutch Ruppersberger. Is Derek Kilmer back? He was here but had to leave. But when he comes back, we'll put him. That's what happens. If you come and come up to us, we'll put you back in order. Then Dutch is followed by Mike Quigley, then Susan Davis. Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Today and this afternoon, this evening is an extraordinarily proud day for me. To be able to have the opportunity to be a member of Congress and to serve with people like John Lewis. And thank you, Catherine Clark, for bringing all of this forward. But to be able to serve with a legend like John Lewis. But today, I have the opportunity to be able to stand with John Lewis and to stand with all of you. It is a very, very proud day. I represent Ventura County in California. I've said many times it's one of the most beautiful counties in all of California and in the country. My constituents, whenever we're talking about guns or gun reform, they ask me two questions. The first question is, are you going to take away my Second Amendment right? And I say, absolutely no. In fact, there's not one member of Congress that wants to take your Second Amendment right away from you. The second question they ask is, why aren't you doing
doing anything. When I came to Congress, the first tragedy I experienced in this House was Sandy Hook. And since Sandy Hook, in my short tenure, we have done nothing. And when I tell the good people of Ventura County why we haven't done anything, they say, you need to tell the world what is going on. When I tell them that the Speaker of the House has the magical keys to the kingdom, and he gets to decide what comes to the floor. We've all taught U.S. history class, or we've been invited to speak in a U.S. history class. I'm sure all of you have done it. This is not what they teach in a U.S. history class. We should be following what is taught in a U.S. history class. The Speaker has the keys to the kingdom. He doesn't bring a bill forward. This is nothing radical that we are doing here today. It is not radical. All we are trying to do is to ask for a vote on two very common sense bills. No fly, no buy, and a universal background check. Enough is truly enough. Yes. We sit here to stand up for our democracy. No bill, no break. No bill. No bill. No break. No bill. No break. No bill. No break. No break. No break. No break. No break.
Cut, Ron. Cut.
Oh, I forgot. No power. Okay. For sure. Good job. I just want to acknowledge everyone here. And I want to acknowledge first we're Democrats who are also Americans. Yes. Americans. And we are patriotic people. We're here to help people or we wouldn't be here. Believe it. Now, I do want to say something about America before I talk about the issue of guns. We are the best country in the world. Right. Those of us through our jobs who travel in different parts of the world and not Bermuda, I'm talking Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, wherever. We know that we have the best country in the world. When we come back to our country, we want to kiss the ground because who we are. And everyone in the world wants to be here. And I'm getting sick and tired of hearing this, we're going to make America better or great again. Well, let me say, we are the greatest country. Right? We also, believe me, we have a lot of work to do in a lot of areas. And one of those areas is what we're here about today, and that's gun control. And we're not talking about violating Second Amendment rights, because we don't want that argument to come back now. We're not telling people not to be able to have a gun to protect their families or to hunt. But you sure don't need to hunt or to protect your families with a semi-automatic weapon. And that's one of the issues that we have to deal with today. You know, when Americans are killed on a regular basis, when little children are gunned down, and we do nothing about it, shame on all of us for not doing what we have to do. Now, we're going to get criticized, some people being here saying we're wasting time. We couldn't use our time any better than to deal with one of the biggest problems we have in the United States of America, and that's dealing with these innocent people that are being killed over and over again. And we're not going to solve this problem overnight either, but we have to get the camel's nose in the tent. We have to start working, Republicans and Democrats, finding a way to make sure that we don't continue to have these mass killings. And we haven't done that yet. We're also, people are saying right now that we're using Orlando as political theater and using this today. That is such hogwash. It is. And the reason it is because there's not a more important issue right now than trying to deal with the issue of these guns. We have the best military in the world. We're ever across the seas fighting for our freedom and our liberty and protect our country. And yet here in the United States, we have domestic terrorists that are just as dangerous. Those of us who were, I was a former prosecutor, and those of us who were in law enforcement at one time know that every police department, every federal, state, and local law enforcement does not want these automatic weapons. You ask them what they want background checks. It's common sense. Number two, they don't want the automatic weapons because they're the front line. They're the ones that are going to get it probably before anyone else in most situations. And these are things that we have to deal with. I have a suggestion to the Speaker. I think the Speaker wants to do the right thing. We disagree a lot on issues and which way to do it, but he's a family man. But my suggestion to the Speaker
is that you sit down with your leadership and our leadership, and let's find a way to resolve and start working through this issue. We have committees all over the place, tax committees, global warming, but we need to come together as Americans, not for Republicans and Democrats, to find a way to fix this. Because, we want the vote, and I want the vote, we want the debate. But that's not enough for me, and shouldn't be enough for any of us. We want results in the end to stop this carnage and the things that are going on. And I would say to the Speaker, you have a situation here right now that's historical, what we're doing. This is not political theater. This is trying to get attention. And we represent the American people, and you represent the American people, and the American people want us to deal with this problem so that America, the greatest country in the world, can be greater. Thank you.
Thank you, Dutch. Dutch, great job. No break! No break! No break! Now, many of you... No break! No break! Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the movie Night Shift. So we will be organizing, and I'm going to ask you, I know there are several of you that are sitting, some are standing, or whatever, to work with the whip's office, because we're going to organize who's going to be here. We just heard that the Speaker's office has released a press release that says that this is a political stunt. So it's understandable why they would shut the cameras off. So they couldn't hear the American citizens couldn't hear the very poignant stories that each and every member that's come to this floor has had to say. We're staying here. As John Lewis said, we're getting in the way to get a vote. And we want that vote, and if that means getting in the way, we're staying here. We'll be, I'm told also from our leadership, that they will be providing food. And so there will be an opportunity for people to leave the floor, not entirely, but leave the floor in groups, be fed, and be prepared to be here. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Unanimous. Now, the next speaker, Mike Quigley, from the great state of Illinois.
You're listening to LUTG Radio, WKKP.
Speak up. I've often been asked,
Here's the mic.
Is this a tough vote? Is this a courageous vote to vote for gun control? Now, it's a matter of perspective, and it's relative, and it's different for different districts. We all have to respect the fact that in some districts, if you differ with the NRA at all, you're gone. Let's talk about courage from a relative perspective here. In Chicago, my hometown, the number one fear Chicago public students have is getting shot. I don't know what it was when you were in grade school, but my number one fear when I was in grade school was not getting shot. Bad grades, getting in trouble, braces, trivial, right? The number one fear on the minds of kids trying to go to learn to or from school every day is the fear of getting shot. It takes courage to walk home for a little kid. So how much courage can a relative sense does it take to make one vote? Why are we here? So I'll speak briefly because I just have one young man to talk about. His name was Blair Holt. His mother was a fire person in Chicago. His father, a police officer. He was an honor student at Julian High School. And on May 10th, 2007, he was on a crowded bus, CTA bus, on his way home with his friends when gunfire erupted on the bus. And he jumped in front of the fire and shielded his friends. he was 16. And I would suggest that it's obvious that when it comes to saving someone from gunfire, he was far more courageous than our colleagues. So for Blair and his parents, let's do something to honor that memory, in the sense that none of these gun victims should die in vain, that something good should come from all of this, and then we move forward together. Because I know, John, there's a Bible verse, no greater love a man should have than he that will lie down for his friends. Blair did that, we can do the same. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry.
Marcia Fudge, followed by Susan Davis, the great lady from Ohio. The immediate past president of the Congressional Black Caucus. Marcia Fudge. John.
Yeah, home of the champion, Cleveland Cavaliers.
All right.
You know what? I have been sitting and I have been listening. I need to ask the Republicans, what do they really stand for? We stand for a moment of silence. I want you to know, probably most of you don't know, I'm in a very small club in this house. I've lost a family member to gun violence. My only brother, my only sibling, died at the hands of a gun. I want to know why they didn't stand for him. Because they didn't. 5-year-old killed in my neighborhood sitting on his mother's lap. Why didn't they stand for him? 5-year-old boy playing in his backyard, shot down playing football. Why didn't they stand for him? I want to know, what do they stand for? Did they stand for Trayvon Martin? No. Did they stand for Jordan Davis? No. Did they stand for Hadithia? No. Did they stand for Michael Garner or Tamir Rice? No, they didn't. What do they stand for? They talk about mental illness. Let me tell you what makes a kid mentally ill. Living with violence every single day. Living in houses where they are held hostage by people who shouldn't have guns, domestic abusers. Let me tell you why these kids have problems. Because their classmates can go out at 10 and 12 years old and get a gun faster than I can go through TSA. That is why these kids have mental illness. They're afraid to walk to school. They're afraid to go home. Where do they go? But my Christian friends, who always talk about their Christian values, where is your morality? Where is your moral compass? You talk about the God you serve. You can't serve the same God I serve and not care about babies who are dying in the street.
That's right.
So I want to know, what do you stand for? Next time somebody else dies, that's not a big deal. I want you to stand then. Stand up for what's right.
Another announcement as we call up Susan Davis, who will be our next speaker. Above me in marble is a famous quote by Daniel Webster behind us. And if I might paraphrase, I think it epitomizes what's going on the floor today that so many of you have eloquently spoken about. And basically, it was an urging by Webster for members of Congress that in our day and generation, may we perform something worthy of being remembered. Today, John Lewis, Catherine Clark led a group onto this floor determined that we would get a vote. Determined, as John Lewis said, that if we have to get in the way to get a vote, we will. You all got spine? You all prepared to stay? You all prepared to stand with John Lewis? And when the question is asked, where were you? We were standing with John Lewis. That's where we were.
I'll sit on the floor for a while.
wanted to remind myself and everybody as well. I think we deal with some pretty complicated issues here. It takes people a long time to work through them. This one to me is not so complicated. And I think when you go out to people and you talk to them about it, it seems pretty simple to them as well. I've spoken with my colleagues. I've asked them about this. I've had them ask me about what's happening today. And every time I ask, they seem to start talking about all the reasons that we shouldn't do this. I think we should think about why we should do it. That's what we have to acknowledge here today. A lot of us raised our hand earlier when someone asked, do we have a child? Do we have a neighbor? Do we have someone that we know who we're very close to, who died at the hands of a gun in a very, very wrong circumstance? Well, many years ago, I led a program of high school students, and John Lewis has been so gracious and so wonderful to meet with these group of students, not the same, a different group every year. They come here to Washington, and they've been trying to understand what makes cities work. What kind of leadership do you need in cities to make that happen? Well, the first year that I led this program, with the help of the Price family, of course, because it was their grandson, in whose honor this program was started, a young man in that program now named Willie James Jones, who we all just thought someday, not just us, but others thought he was going to be a great leader. Some people even looked at this kid and said he could be president of the United States someday. He had a 4-year scholarship to Cornell. At his graduation party, someone came by, a drive-by shooting. It was not that kind of machine gun that we're talking about, and shot in the direction of a few kids where Willie was standing. And in great grief, the 50 students who were with me and with Willie at his funeral kind of came up to me, and we were talking, and I said, why? Why Willie? What happened? He said, Mrs. Davis, don't you know, Willie didn't know enough to duck. No, Willie was busy trying to be a surgeon someday and go on and really be a great person wanting to give back to his community. Well, some of you may recall that after Sandy Hook, a lot of us invited people here who came because they wanted to be in the audience after that. They wanted to give witness and help to the president as he discussed the importance of this Congress moving forward and doing something about gun violence. Something major about gun violence. And here we're doing something pretty simple, I think. Well, I had with his family, Willie's family came here that day. And that was such an incredibly moving opportunity to them. And they shared their story of Willie. And Willie's dad walked around with a picture of Willie and gave it to everybody that he ran into. These things stay with people all their lives. And we have to give support for that. So as we think about what we do, no fly, no buy, simple, makes sense, background checks that really do look into what this person has been doing for the last number of months and years when we evaluate whether or not they need that weapon of mass destruction. How anybody could need a weapon of mass destruction is beyond me. But some of my Republican friends tell me it's very complicated. We shouldn't try and simplify this issue. The other thing I just want to say, because we're talking about people who have been killed by this gun violence, what we don't see the children that are affected by this gun violence. You know, just the people alone, since Orlando, 500 people were shot in the United States. More than 200 of those were killed. But what about all those children? What about the children out there that are even taught how to prepare if an active shooter comes into their school classroom? There was a picture of a little girl the other day standing on the rim of a toilet because she had been taught to go there and close the door in the bathroom. What are we doing? Why can't we make this point? What is it that's stopping people from moving forward? We talk about people being on the wrong side of history. There is not a right side of history when you're opposed to making good changes in our laws in this country. We have to do that. We have to think about those children that are affected every single day. We are a resilient people, and we raise children to be resilient. But you can't make them resilient in the face of a machine gun. They have no escape, and nobody has an escape. Let's do this, folks. Thank you for being here. Please, this is going to be something that we don't want our colleagues to decide that they can't do this because it's political. We want to join with them. We're not pointing fingers. We're saying, come with us. Do this together. We can do it together. If you just realize how important this is, listen to people. Listen to people in your district. Thank you.
Our good friend and my seatmate on the Ways and Means Committee, Mike Thompson, just handed me this news flash that NRA radio show has put out. Here's the news comment. The NRA radio show compares participants in Representative John Lewis's gun violence sit-in to criminals and terrorists. Does that firm up your determination to stand on this floor?
Yes.
For a body that has held hostage a group of individuals that won't even allow us to vote, to call John Lewis a terrorist? Because he's getting in the way. Because he's getting in the way. Because he wants to see the kind of justice and results that the American people not only want and need, but deserve. All we're asking for is a vote. If that's a terrorist action, then I guess we're all terrorists.
Patriots.
Patriots. Thank you. And now, is Louise Slaughter here? We'll skip you. Mike Honda. Is Mike Honda here? Brenda Lawrence then has the floor. We'll get back to Mike.
I was just informed that our Speaker of the House is having a press conference. Isn't it interesting that in the middle of this demonstration of a call to action, our leader prefers to be in front of a camera than to take the seat of leadership in the United States Congress and bring the body together so that we can pass common sense gun reform? It is interesting, ladies and gentlemen, this amazing country, the democracy that we love, one of the reasons that motivated me to go on public service, and I was encouraged by a grandmother who did not even finish high school, that this country, being an African American and a woman, going through the struggles of civil rights, she said, this is the country that will give you an opportunity. A country that will open its arms and embrace you, and you have freedoms and you have rights based on the Constitution. I witnessed when our Constitution was not writing that people stood up and they demanded that our Constitution reflect the philosophy of democracy. Today, we are sitting here because, you know, if you love our Constitution, you must know it's not Democrat, it's not Republican. It was the coming together of two bodies working together in conflict and compromise, and we have, with countries around the world, envy our democracy, our freedoms, and our rights. The Republicans can't take credit for it, nor can the Democrats. Now we're talking about gun control. I'm proud to stand here as a Democrat with all of my colleagues, but this is a house with two parties. Yes. Where is the other party? We cannot move this country forward unless we come together and debate and legislate laws. We have a crisis in America. You've heard the names being read. You've heard the stories of representatives in this House who have lost loved ones to gun violence. We're not the only ones who represent districts that had deaths or shootings as a result of gun violence. My colleagues who are not here today have experienced the same thing. What is stopping democracy today is the failure to come and even bring the issue forward. That's why we're here. You haven't heard anyone say, Republican, you must vote a certain way. They're saying, Republicans, come to your seat in Congress. Mr. Leader, come take your seat and let's do the work. All of the calls that I have received today has been stay your ground. You're on the right track. I'm a Republican, but we need to address this issue in America. Don't give up. We're in the right place, Democrats. And I want my Republican colleagues to come and take their seats and legislate. If you have an issue with gun control, come to the table and have the political courage to do your job. You are now in the election year where you're out there campaigning and saying, send me to Congress, I'll work for you. Where are you working today? Where are you today? And what are you telling your constituents? We're on the floor of the people's house. We have not shut a single door. There is nothing restricting a single Republican from walking in this door and sitting down and start legislating.
This is Kathy Barks for LUTG Radio, WKKP Digital Broadcasting. And Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, is actually having a press conference right now, as you heard them say. And he said the reason why he's not there is because, well, the session hasn't been convened, and that's why there's no cameras in the session. There's no audio feed. And he said that once before, when the Republicans were the minority, they did the same thing. They had a filibuster, and the lights were turned off on them. So when there is no convening of the Congress, then basically there's no rights to film anything, and no one has the floor. So the Democrats are saying, well, we can open up the floor if you guys would just come back in and talk. Well, we'll see what more they have to say.
On that list, and we know that they have terrorist connections, they should not be able to buy a gun. And universal background checks, how many of you remember when you got your permit to drive a car, you could not drive it until a certain age, and you had to pass certain benchmarks in order to get it, and they test you and make you apply repeatedly through your life to validate that you are capable physically to drive a car. And you're talking about a gun that takes a life? Where are we, America? The country that I love with the Constitution and the rights and the freedoms that other countries wish they had. And here we are stuck. I invite my Republican colleagues to walk through this door. I invite them to take up those two issues, and let's come together and legislate, and let's take care of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Make our colleagues aware of who, in what order people are going to be coming up. Next, we're going to hear from Bobby Scott, then John Delaney, Bill Keating, Bill Pasquale, and then Jim McGovern. So that's the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that will speak. And with that, let's turn it over from the man from Virginia, Bobby Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, John Lawson, and thank you, John Lewis, for bringing us together. This is a proud day to be a Democrat because we have established the fact that it's not going to be business as usual anymore. We had business as usual after Virginia Tech, after Colorado, after South Carolina, even after Newtown, Connecticut. business as usual, not doing anything, but now we know that business as usual and a moment of silence is not going to be enough. We know what to do. We had a task force that studied the issues and came up with an agenda that included the assault weapons ban, a limitation on the size of magazines, because we found that when you have to switch magazines, it's an opportunity to intervene in these mass shootings. If you limit the magazine size, you limit the number of people who will die. Background checks, including no fly, no buy, gun show loopholes, and make sure everybody gets the background check to make sure that the guns don't get into the hands of people that shouldn't get it. Comprehensive mental health, because you've seen in all these shootings that there's obviously untreated mental health. And crime prevention generally. Invest in young people early to get them on the right track, to keep them on the right track so they're not interested in buying guns at all. We know what to do, and today we're telling the public that doing nothing is no longer an option. It's not going to be business as usual. So thank you, Democrats, for coming together. If we stick together, we will get a vote. Thank you very much. And if there's no bill,
Okay, so we had a little issue here. Feed died, but we're going to keep going forward.
Americans that care about their fellow Americans, that want to stop this from happening, and that's our job. We're the first responders. Let's tell our colleagues, answer the call, do your job.
Not only a member of the Ways and Means Committee, the Intelligence Committee, and also serves on several caucuses. including Firefighters Caucus, as we all can remember those brave men and women going up the stairs in the trade towers as people were coming down. A person who lives, breathes, and needs service to his constituency and cares deeply about this issue. Our own gentleman from New Jersey, the man from Patterson on the Passaic, Bill Pascrell.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, the other Michael, for helping us come together today. John, I know you don't like this, but I'll do it anyway. I have the luxury of being here. I am so proud of what you represent because you bring it to the floor and you bring it outside. You're not two different people. You're the same people. The same person that speaks on this floor is the same person we know outside. We honor you. We honor you. And we will never let you down. And we have your back. Because when you have your heart in something, we will always have our support to you. Thank you, John Lewis, for all that you believe. 20 years ago, when I came to the Congress, just a few days after I was sworn, Matthew Gross was at the Empire State Building with his brother and was shot down. I visited him in a hospital, met his brother Don, who is now the head of the Brady Organization Against Gun Violence. 20 years. If you remember 20 years ago, who else had a tragedy within their family? Within our family. Carolyn McCarthy. They lost their husband to violence on the Long Island train. Carolyn is always at the forefront to end gun violence, not to take guns away. See, they want to put us in that light. They want us to be the evildoers. But we respect the Second Amendment as we do all the amendments of the Constitution. We don't just pick and choose which ones we want. This is the total Constitution for all Americans, regardless of their persuasion. Now, I want to know why the other side, my brothers and sisters, why are they so afraid? The song in my church, Be Not Afraid. We sing it. Be not afraid. What in God's name are you afraid of? Do you think that the NRA going to send you to summer camp up in the woods in Maine or something? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid? I used to take my vacations in Maine. I love Maine. Some of my best friends live in Maine. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so proud of all of you. In Isaiah 6, chapter 8, someone asks, who shall I send? The Lord says, who shall I send? Each one of us, whether you're Democrat or Republican, independent, I don't care what you are, how you cook your food, how you talk, how you raise your family, each one of us has a responsibility. That's right. Send me, Lord. All of us are being asked to step up to the plate. Not to condemn anybody, not to point fingers at anybody, but to join together in what we know is right. This is what we got to get the other side to understand. This has nothing to do with political points. Most of us have B- or F all our lives from that group. Ain't going to help. Nothing's going to help us in that regard. We have to come together, my friends. In Psalm 91, one of my favorite Psalms. My God is whom I trust, for it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions. Do not be afraid. Under his wings, you may seek refuge. His faithfulness is a shield, and bulwark. You will not be afraid of the terror by night. Please, my brothers and sisters, don't be afraid. They cannot send you to summer camp. You are here with us. Let's do the job we're getting paid for to do. God bless America.
God bless Bill Pascal. Let's hear it for Bill Pascal. John Delaney.
Thank you, John. So we all have a lot of questions here today. My first question is, since when did one faction of one party in one body in the Congress of the United States start believing that it could entirely control the agenda of the Congress and undermine the will of the American people? Since when did one lobbying organization, just one, not a diverse coalition of interest groups, one lobbying organization believe that it could bully and threaten members of the Congress of the United States so that they oppose bipartisan legislation that reflects the will of the people? And since when did one industry believe that it could interfere with the justice that the American people are demanding we deliver to them in terms of making them safe? When have so few gotten in the way of the will of so many? And that is exactly what's happening on this issue. And it's not only preventing us from being able to do the obvious measures on gun safety that all of my friends talked about here today, but it really threatens representative democracy as we know it. Because the American people are clear on this issue. They are clear on this issue. Democrats, Republicans agree by large majorities that we, their Congress, who they've elected, should be doing something on this issue. And why do they agree? Because they've been paying attention. They've been paying attention. And they've been watching the carnage. And they've been seeing it, and it's made them sad. They've cried for the victims. It's made them scared. It's made them afraid to bring their children to places that people never used to think about something like this could happen. And it's made them angry at their core that their democracy is failing. And that's what's happening here today. But the other thing that's happening here today is we're saying no more. We're drawing a line in the sand. And we're saying today it stops. Because the business of this House is not resuming until we bring to the floor the bill that the majority of the American people want us to address. It's hard to almost say it because it's so obvious. In any other world other than the House of Representatives of the United States of America in 2016, would you think there would be a question as to whether people on the no-fly list, as deemed by the FBI, should be able to buy a gun?
Terrorists.
They want us to bring that bill. We are drawing a line in the sand. We're saying no more. We've got the best line in the sand drawer in the world as our leader. Thank you for teaching us again how to do this. God bless you.
Jim McGovern.
You know, when I ran for Congress 20 years ago, I did so because I wanted the chance. I wanted the privilege to come here and serve in the greatest deliberative body on the planet. This was the place where all the great issues confronting our country and the world would be debated. This is the place where all the important issues of the day would be considered and debated and voted on. But sadly, under this Republican leadership, this United States House of Representatives has become a place where trivial issues get debated passionately and important ones not at all.
Okay, so we're just trying to get a reconnect. We're just trying to reconnect here. We're just trying to reconnect.
Pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. 49 of our brothers and sisters were murdered in Orlando. They're more than just statistics. Their names were read earlier on this floor. These are mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and sons and daughters. And yet, the response of this House, looking at the response of this House, one would feel that there's not an appreciation for the human aspect of this terrible tragedy. Because all we have done is come to the floor and have 10 seconds of silence. That is it. And that is what we do customarily now after each and every massacre that occurs in this country. Because we have massacres on a regular basis. We don't stop to have a moment of silence for the individuals who get killed each and every day all throughout this country as a result of gun violence. We only do that when there's a massacre. And that is it. And all we are asking is that we have an opportunity to try to find some solutions to try to prevent this senseless violence. That is what all this controversy is about. All we are asking the Speaker of the House to do is allow us to be able to deliberate on bills that say that if you are on a terrorist watch list and you cannot fly, then you cannot go out and buy a weapon of war. We are asking him to bring to the floor a bill that would strengthen universal background checks so we don't sell guns to people who have a history of violence in this country. We'd like to see an assault weapons ban brought to this House floor and debated and voted on. That is all we are asking. And if the Speaker of the House and the Republicans don't want to vote for it, they don't have to. Right. But this is the United States House of Representatives. This is the people's house. Yes. These are the issues that we need that people expect us to debate and to consider on this floor. And so, Speaker Ryan, wherever you may be, whether you're hiding in your office or doing interviews on camera right now, do your job. Remember this, you are the Speaker of the House, not the Speaker of the NRA. Yeah. You are the Speaker of the entire House, Republicans and Democrats alike. It is time that you do your job and let us have our vote.
Thank you. I want everybody to know again how appreciative we are of the people who have gathered in the gallery. Please give them a round. Thank you. We also know that there have been groups gathering outside of the Capitol to encourage you to stay on as we continue to make our case to have a vote. And with that, we're going to hear from the great lady from the state of Washington, Susan Del Bene.
Thank you, and thank you, John Lewis. Thank you so much for doing this, and I want to thank all my colleagues who are here, who are standing so tall by sitting down. This thank you to the senators and even the governor of the state of Washington who came to join us today.
Speak up, Susan.
You would think that we were asking for something outrageous, but we are asking for common sense, basic bipartisan legislation. We are asking for no fly, no buy, just to make sure that suspected terrorists can't buy guns. We're asking for universal background checks, something that my state, the state of Washington, passed through an initiative. And we're asking to allow the Center for Disease Control to be able to do basic research on the causes of gun violence. That's right. The CDC cannot even use federal dollars to conduct research into gun violence. It's been banned by Congress. That is outrageous. It needs to change. And that's why we're all here, because we believe that it needs to change. And we cannot wait until the next tragedy to see that change. Now, there is never going to be one piece of legislation, one law that will prevent every act of senseless violence, but we can and we must do more. So we are asking, Speaker Ryan, we are asking for a vote. We deserve a vote. No bill, no break.
No bill, no break. No bill, no break.
Thank you, sir. Everybody here in this chamber knows the story of Rick Miller. That he was here, how many years ago? 40 years ago, 44 years ago, and now he's back. And he's back, and he's got the message. Rick Nolan from Minnesota.
Thank you. I would like to begin, as others already have, thanking John Lewis and Catherine Clark. Brother Lewis, you've been in the forefront of such important leadership throughout my entire adult life. I can't tell you how grateful we are. You took on difficult tasks and difficult goals at difficult times, and you persevered, and you've always been successful. And I predict that you and Catherine will be successful in this endeavor as well. And thank you for that. I'd like to just put a little perspective on all this that a number of others have already done, and I think at least at one level something that hasn't, a couple things maybe haven't been said. But at one level, this is about whether or not this is a democratic institution. I did serve back in a time when every bill and every idea got its day in committee on the floor of this House. We had a chance to argue the merits, the pros, the cons, have a vote. It's called democracy. The people's house. And that's what the Speaker and the Republican leadership are denying this Congress and the American people, and we have to put a stop to it. Well, let me remind everybody else of a couple of other little things here, in case you haven't thought about it. There are people in America that can't vote because they wrote a bad check. They can't, excuse me. There are people in America who can't buy a gun because they wrote a bad check. Yeah, they can't vote either. Yeah. There are people in America who can't buy a gun because they stole a car. There are people in America who can't buy a gun because they bought or sold a controlled substance. That's right. That's right. There are people in this country that have been denied the right to own a gun for a whole wide range of offenses, none of which are violent in nature and threaten other people's lives. That's right.
That's right.
And what is this about? Well, what is this about? This is about denying the right of people who have sworn allegiance to a terrorist group and committed to wanting to kill Americans, and we want to let them buy a gun? Are we kidding? Oh, no. Yeah, no fly, no buy. No fly, no buy. No buy. Let me tell you something else. Most of my colleagues here represent big urban districts. I represent a rural area. Everybody in my neighborhood has shotguns and deer rifles. Hell, I was 19 or 20 before I ate my first chicken and roast beef. I grew up on duck and venison and fish and all kinds of wild game. We support the Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
But we are not adverse to gun safety. That's right. That's right. And let me tell you something you might not know. How many of you knew you can only have 3 shells in your gun when you're shooting ducks? All right, that's a fact. 3 shells in your gun when you're shooting ducks. Brother Thompson knows that. That's right. That's right. And that's been that way through our entire life, has it not, Mike? That's right. And you know why they have that rule? Trying to save ducks. Trying to save ducks. That's right. That's right. And now this Republican Congress is trying to say to us, they're trying to say to us that we shouldn't give the same rights to our elementary school children to protect them that we give to the ducks? Huh? They're trying to say that we shouldn't give the same rights to men and women at places of worship? That they shouldn't have the same right to take to the ducks? People going to a movie theater to have a little fun some evening shouldn't have the same safety rights as ducks? How about our LGBT community that just wanted to go out on a Saturday night, engage in a little revelry and a little dancing and have some fun? We can't give them the same protection that we give the ducks. Let's restore democracy to the House of Representatives. Let us demand that we have a vote. No fly, no buy, no bill, no break. That's what this is all about. Thank you.
How about another round of applause for Rick Nolan? Derek Kilmer, you're up next.
All that, baby.
So many of us who were in appropriations earlier today actually got a chance to vote on an amendment that said if you're on the terrorist watch list, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. And as we debated that amendment, each one of us stood and we talked about human beings who were victims of gun violence. People from Orlando and from San Bernardino. I spoke about a gentleman named Damian Maines, who worked. And he was a father. He was someone who on Halloween dressed up as Abraham Lincoln, and who on Christmas dressed up as Santa Claus, and yet at a Christmas party was gunned down by a terrorist. Were April 4th, 2006, and July 23rd, 2009. And those are the days that Sophie and Tess Kilmer were born. Probably the most common. And I should give a rip about what kind of country they grow up in. I want them, one, because I want them to be good, informed citizens of the world, and two, because I want them to understand why their dad is gone so much. And sometimes that's hard, because oftentimes we're voting on stuff that doesn't seem important, and sometimes it's hard because we're not voting on things that are important. And I love it that they're informed. But sometimes it's really hard for them to be informed. It's scary for them to be informed. One of the toughest days I've had was back here calling my daughters
after the day of school and saying, "How was school today?" And my 6-year-old, who was in first grade, said, "We did a drill today where we had to hide in a coat closet and hide in a cubby and cover ourselves with a coat." Like, how messed up is that? That our kids are practicing active shooter drills. And we can't take a vote. You know, after this awful occurrence in Orlando, my wife, let's make sure that if you're a suspected terrorist, you can't buy a weapon. And she said, "So are you going to pass those?" And I said, "I'm not sure." I said, "We're in the minority." And she said, "Well, then what good are you?" And I want to say thank you, Mr. Lewis, and I want to thank Catherine Clark, because we're trying. We are trying. And I guess I just asked the speaker and my friends from the other side of the aisle, what good are we if we can't cast a simple vote to say people who are suspected terrorists can't buy a gun to kill innocent Americans? What good are we?
You're listening to LUTG Radio, WKKP Digital Broadcasting.
And text. And I'm here for every child and every parent who's been a victim of gun violence, and I'm here to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's time we pass these bills.
Gwen Graham, as she's coming to the podium, we want to again we want to thank everybody who's been in the gallery, but I also want the members to know that there are people gathering outside the Capitol in support of what you're doing. And as we said earlier, the Sergeant, yes, Tim, I'll recognize you. You have one. I would like to thank John Larson.
Oh, yes. Thank you, John. I am from the northern part of Florida. I was in Orlando when the shootings occurred. I woke up. I have a really bad habit. I look at my phone all through the night. I know. But this night, I woke up about 3 in the morning. I looked at my phone, and I never went back to sleep. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. They're grown. I'm like Derek's, and where's Derek? Where are you? I tell you, everyone here in this chamber that has young children, you have my immense respect. My children are grown. 25, 23, and he'll be 20, my youngest, in 8 days. Finally going to have a beer. But I'm going to have the honor on Friday night of giving the keynote address in Orlando to the Orange County Democrats. So I've been working on these remarks because they mean a lot. They mean a lot to the people of Orlando. They mean a lot to the people of Florida. So I thought I would read a little bit of it tonight. Mina Justice woke up at 2 in the morning to the sound of her phone. It was every mother's worst nightmare. Her son was in trouble. In the club, they're shooting. Instinctively, as a mom, she asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm trapped in the bathroom. Pulse, downtown. Call the police. I'm gonna die." Mina called the police and continued texting her son, waiting for him to respond. 30 minutes later, "Call them, Mommy. Now. He's coming. I'm gonna die. Hurry.
He's in the bathroom with us. Mina waited 15 more hours before finding out her son, Eddie Justice, did not survive. I can't imagine the terror in Mina's heart when she received those texts. All of us here who are parents, can you imagine? Can you imagine what that would be like? To be so helpless and know that your child, his or her life is in danger. My heart breaks for Mina. It breaks for all parents all across Orlando, Florida, our country. My heart breaks for all of those who lost their lives at Pulse. We need more love. I'm a firm believer in love. We need more compassion. We need more understanding of each other in this country. And following Orlando, we have seen more love. We have seen more compassion, and we have seen more understanding in the wake of the shooting. Thousands of Floridians lined up to give blood. Equality Florida started a fund for victims that broke records. And Orlando's First Baptist Church, which opposes gay marriage, opened their doors for a vigil. They prayed and cried alongside the LGBT community. We need more of this love, not just in the wake of mass violence, but always. And while I'd like to talk just about love, about community, and about coming together, the truth is, we need more than that. We need smarter gun safety laws to keep our streets, our schools, our sanctuaries, whether it's a church in Charleston or a club in Orlando. We need smarter laws to make our communities safer. So I am such a proud member of this Congress. I won't have been here very long when I leave, but I will tell each of y'all what an honor it is to be here with you here today, and I will be here all night. Thank God that there are people who recognize it is time for a change. Now is the time. No bill, no way. No bill, no way. No bill, no way. Congress can't sit by anymore or stand by anymore while Americans die. It's time for us to act.
Informative piece of information I asked him to deliver. Ed?
So outside, a crowd is beginning to develop. It's Moms Demand Action. And if we text Demand Action 64433, we will get more people to join them out on there to support what we're doing to end this crazy gun violence and to take two common sense bills up. No fly, no buy, and universal background checks. They're prepared to help us because that's what they want, and they demand action. Demand action 64433.
Doing God's work while we were here and missing her place in line, our next speaker, the great lady from the state of New York, Louise Slaughter, a direct descendant of Daniel Boone.
Yes.
How's that for a factoid? Take that, Periscope.
For nothing. You know, it's nice that we can smile a little bit, but it's not really what we're able to do today. Just before we came down, my wonderful granddaughter, who works for a school system in Chicago, sent me a text message. And she said, Grandma, thank you for standing up so that no other teacher will have to go to the funeral of a student. Think about that a minute. You know, I was talking about it earlier today at the Rules Committee where we were trying to bring up the king of the bill. that has bipartisan support, and all it does is says if you're on the no-fly zone, you can't buy a gun. They won't even consider that. It makes such common sense. So common sense does not prevail here, as we know. But for those of you who haven't been here as long as I have, and that's been a good while, you don't know that there was a time here that we had a ban on assault weapons, and it worked. Unfortunately, it expired, and was the point that there was no chance in this world that we could extend it. But while we had it, it was.
Okay, one moment, we got a little disconnect here.
Again, because it does come down to the fact that we now live in a country where you could leave to go to church, or your kids could go to school. You could be a little 6-year-old or maybe a second grader in a town. It's very much like Newtown, any place, and go there and never be seen again. I'm sure the people at the Baptist Church in Charleston thought they were going to go and do some Bible study with their friends, as they did every week. But this was going to be a different week because Mr. Roof had other plans for me. I'm sure they planned to go home, have dinner, get up the next morning and go about their work, but they couldn't do it because Mr. Roof had other plans, and he came in and he killed them. Now, imagine, we really don't think about this enough. The people who have been victimized by the loss of their family, what does it do for them? I lost my husband a couple of years ago, and I know what loss is about, and maybe many of you do as well. There is such an empty spot. There are things that you can't bear to think about. There are memories. This was close to Christmas in Newtown when somebody came in with a gun and literally shot those little children to bits. Think about that. We have to look at it that way because that's what happened. We can't sugarcoat a bit what happened in that classroom for no earthly reason. He didn't even know who they were. But his mother bought him some guns. And he decided one day he was not happy. And happiness is a state of mind that everybody. I think this is a problem for me. That when we hold up our hand, we are going to protect the people of the United States. But we allow people to use them like a shooting gallery. We don't have an amendment, apparently, for ourselves. And sometimes I wrote a piece not too long ago about what do we do, those of us who don't have the protection of the Constitution, apparently. Are we to teach our children to dance up over bullets and say, they're coming? How in the world do we protect ourselves from that? Is it possible to do that? But there have been 988 mass shootings in the United States since Newtown. 988. A mass shooting is classified as one where more than 3 people have died. We consider that. And I heard one of our colleagues today talking about Chicago, where just this weekend alone, 46 people were shot and 13 died. And that's so every weekend's business practically in Chicago. That's what happens there. For heaven's sakes, let's not let this stop here. It is such a relief for me to see the Democrats standing up and say, we're really going to do something. We're going to be unified here, and we're going to stay here all night, and we will stay here till we get this done. We've been accused of a publicity stunt, all sorts of things. In the first place, I am totally offended that the Speaker of the House of the United States turned off the microphones. I am totally offended that we don't have anybody recording any of this. I'm totally offended that we have, for the longest time, and we said it in rules, we never get amendments here to do anything. They have literally shut out in the Rules Committee the voices of over half the Americans. Remember that we got 1 million more votes than they did, and they're in charge because they have reinforcement. Don't forget that. We are really the majority, but we can't have amendments, we can't speak, we can't do very much of anything. But this is the most egregious thing, I think, that I've seen in the many, many years that I've been in Congress, that we will not do what we're sworn to do, protect the lives of the people of the United States of America. And as I said, there was a time when assault weapons were not on the street. I think it's almost criminal. I know it's not actually a criminal hobby for gun dealers to sell those kinds of things to people. Maybe that's something we ought to look at. I'm very interested in what happens in that lawsuit about Newtown. That may give us an opening really to do something. But anyway, I'm happy to stand here with all my colleagues and certainly tell you that the frustration that we all feel should really culminate in some real positive action here. Thank you all for being who you are. I'm proud to be one of you.
Digital broadcasting again. This is Kathy Brooks for LUTV Radio, WKKP Digital Broadcasting. I want to take a quick break just so we can reset. And I just want to let you know some of the Twitter feed is saying that taking a bribe from the NRA is criminal, and what they're actually referring to is Paul Ryan got a contribution of around $38,000. That was what was reported on CNN earlier today. So I don't have the details of that. Lots of politicians get funding from the NRA and from different other companies and people, individuals, and things like that. And so they're right. No politician should ever be bought or influenced financially or influenced with gifts. It's all about the people. So they're supposed to govern all of the people of their area, whether they're a governor, whether they're a mayor, whether they are a senator or a congressman. They're supposed to be there to speak for the people. And so it'll be interesting to see whether or not Paul Ryan will actually bring this subject of no-fly, no-buy, the no bill, no break, whether they'll bring this this bill up to allow a vote on it. All right. We'll be back in just a few minutes. This is Kathy Brooks for LUTG Radio, WKKP Digital Broadcasting.